Welcome to the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Like you, I am disappointed. Not very happy about the seemingly inexplicable lack of movement or activity on the part of the, what was it? They were saying as many as 60,000 troops occupying Washington, D.C. We'll wait until more people get in and let the jackals pounce if they wish. Because there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss about this. And, my personal morale is fine. My perspective on this is obviously a little bit different. Slapweasel, I would be not as quick as usual with the banhammer unless they are being abusive or obnoxious. If they're just expressing their frustration or doubts, that's fine. But we're not going to tolerate any abuse. We're not going to tolerate that sort of thing. And of course, as I've already indicated on the blog, there's absolutely no reason to grant one iota of respect to those people who are busy running around bragging that they were the first rats off the sinking ship. Okay? And so, it's fine to be disappointed. It's fine to be upset and so forth. I still have hope. I still believe that there are enough anomalies circling the situation that nobody has answered properly. I was talking to one of the team leaders of one of our projects, and he was just as frustrated as I was. And he said, it's just inexplicable. It's just absolutely inexplicable. What would be the point of moving all of those troops in there and then not using them? And like I pointed out, that this would be very, very far from the first time that a king or a general failed to take action. And so, something else I was explaining to another person who was a bit upset and disappointed about the whole thing, is it's important to distinguish the substantive from the superficial. And so, that's funny. JF is commenting on Vox right now. That's the hallmark of the Gamma. If you ever wondered who won, forget who actually won. If you ever wonder how JF felt that evolution debate went, all you have to know is that however long it's been, however 18 months or whatever it's been since that debate, he's still trying to take shots at me. If you ever wonder whether you beat a Gamma at something, all you got to know is just wait. If he's taking shots at you later, you know who won. Anyhow, it's fine. But here's the point: is that it's not over while the military is occupying Washington, D.C. Okay? What has happened? There's been a little ceremony. And we don't know what's going on. We know that the media is cheerfully anointing him. We know that big tech is now inspired and fired up, and now they're going after people who simply aren't controversial in any way. When you see people like Michelle Malkin getting banned from Twitter and so forth, you know that big tech is fired up. And if this apparent result stands, then there's going to be all kinds of implications, all kinds of purges. Most right-wing commentators are going to be totally unable to utilize mainstream stuff like Twitter, like PayPal, etc., etc., etc. But in terms of what has actually changed, in terms of the power balance, we don't know. How can we know when the Capitol is still being occupied? And obviously, a lot of you will have heard some of the various theories. They'll have heard some of the various ideas. There's reports that the Biden administration is complaining that they're not getting proper cooperation from the Pentagon. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on. But what we do know is that the Capitol is still occupied by tens of thousands of troops. And you can't take the excuses that the media is giving very seriously. Remember, what was the supposed reason for all of those troops that was given by the people who were dubious about Q? What they were saying was that, oh, they're there in case of the MAGA hordes rioting. Did that happen? Was anyone there? No one was there. So obviously that wasn't the reason. Now there's a lot of other little anomalies. We saw the 17 flags at the Andrews Air Force Base when Trump flew off. His family didn't really seem to be as upset or as emotional as you would have expected them. But at this point in time, there's just no point in trying to read the tea leaves anymore. What we do know, what we absolutely know, is that whatever move is going to be made, it's not going to be President Trump doing it. Does that mean that he's given previous orders? Does that mean that the military has made it clear that they're going to do their duty? We don't know. We have no idea. And while I was obviously wrong, and Joe Biden was permitted to go through an inauguration ceremony today, I did tell you that from my perspective, the weak point was always President Trump himself. Who is President Trump? He's a civic nationalist boomer. And so he's a negotiator. He's not a fighter. So that was always my concern. And so I was always concerned about the possibility that even though all of these preparations were clearly made, go ahead and nuke Dantas 22 there. All this, nothing is going to be done. It's all, there are tens of thousands of troops in Washington, D.C. This is why you notice all of these lies from the other side. When people say, well, nothing happened. The U.S. Capitol is still being occupied by tens of thousands of troops. Yes, we can still hope for a double envelopment. It doesn't look as likely. It doesn't look as obvious as it did 24 hours ago. But again, this is why I'm saying that you need to distinguish between the superficial and the substantive. Can anything be done? Yes. Will anything be done? We don't know. I didn't actually see the video of the National Guard turning their backs on Biden's convoy. Again, I wouldn't put too much weight on that. Certainly the Marines never hesitated to show their contempt for Bill Clinton either, and he was still president for 8 years. But as far as, the thing that's useful to keep in mind, I think, is that Trump, as president, had a duty to protect the country and the Constitution. It looks like he did not do his duty as president. That is the primary reason that I am disappointed. Now, the military has that same duty and responsibility. The military hasn't withdrawn from Washington, D.C. yet. So when someone said, can the double envelopment still take place? Absolutely it can. Everything is there. But Matthew Lopez, what part of when I said I was wrong was hard for you to understand? If you're just here to say something that I've already said, you're going to be banned. Okay? Do you really think that I'm some sort of God who is never, ever incorrect about anything? Furthermore, I still haven't given up hope. There's a lot of different possible interpretations, but the main thing is that the troops are still there. For what? Theoretically, Biden is now the commander-in-chief. So why hasn't he ordered them to go home? Until these obvious questions are answered, until these observable anomalies resolve themselves, there's absolutely no reason to give up hope. None. If Godzilla, okay, go ahead and ban the Stephen guy. I'm not going to go back, just because you guys come in late, I'm not going to go back and talk about things I've already talked about. So just either watch it later or watch it on UATV, but don't ask questions about things that I've already addressed. Anyhow, the biggest thing to watch right now is what's going on with the military. Remember, the military has its own duties. The military operates on its own time frames, and the military has a veto at any time. So there's absolutely no need to expect them to have to stick to what we knew Donald Trump would have to do. And I'm disappointed in President Trump because I felt that his duty to the Constitution required him to take action before noon today, right? And he didn't. I don't know why he didn't. Maybe he lacked the courage. Maybe his boomerism got the better of him, and he just couldn't accept the idea of overturning the structures. History is littered with the bones of kings and generals whose courage failed them at the wrong time. It's really interesting when you study military history to see how many generals and to see how many kings could have won the battles and could have won the wars, but their courage failed them. Even in legal situations, I've seen lawyers who have the perfect answer, the perfect case law, the perfect rebuttal to the argument that the other side is making, and totally fail to take the shot. And so, and there's going to be other possibilities too. We don't know. But remember, the military has its own responsibilities too. And one thing that is reasonable to keep in mind, I don't think it's flattering to President Trump, but it does make sense, is that if President Trump had ordered the military to fulfill his duty to protect the Constitution and to protect the Republic, then it would have been seen as a partisan act. It would have been seen as him doing something to his own benefit. The military, if they choose to act after the fact, then it's no longer a partisan act. Then it's very clear that they're acting solely because the election was invalid, the ceremonies were invalid, and none of it will hold up. And yes, there are also other suggestions, like Trump saying he'll see us soon. But, look, all of us, everybody, is totally sick of all of the cryptic pronouncements and sick of the interpretations. You are. I am. We all are. And so, I thought that President Trump was going to cross the Rubicon. Especially when he arranged for the occupation of the whole city. So we'll just have to wait and see. What do we do? Was it a mistake to buy into Q? No, absolutely not. Hope is good. A plan did exist. Do you understand how utterly stupid it is to claim that failure of a plan to succeed means that there was no plan? There's 60,000 troops occupying the capital city. Obviously, there was a plan. No, see, apple pie, you're too stupid for this Darkstream. False hope is not good. How do you know whether hope is false or not ahead of time? What is hope? Hope is optimism about the future. Optimism of the possibility concerning the future. So what you're saying is you should embrace despair. It's better to embrace despair. It's better not to hope. And that's false. That's a lie. And so I would, no, Q was not a data mine psyop. Q was not I mean, that's just retarded. This, what you're on right now, YouTube, is far more of a data mine than Q ever was. Q didn't gather any data. That's just stupid. Don't say stupid things like that. I understand you're disappointed. I understand that you wanted a different outcome. So did I. But that's not an excuse to be stupid. It's a lie to say that nothing happened. Many, many, many things happened. But don't ever forget that the enemy always gets a vote. No, yes, I've heard of Operation Trust. It wasn't, trust me, it wasn't a Bolshevik plan to make tens of millions of people across the United States and around the world completely cease to believe in any and all media narratives. That is a meme. I mean, that itself was a little rhetorical psyop. You know, Q's not a grift. Who's Q? Who sent any money to Q? I didn't. I'm actually wearing a Q shirt right now. I'm wearing our Alt Hero Q shirt. What did I pay for it? Did we license the rights from Q? No. Media trust was nowhere near as the lack of media trust is much higher thanks to Q than anything else. Q boosted morale. Q is part of the reason that Trump won in such a landslide and is part of why the election fraud was exposed. Yeah, I mean, there was good and there was bad. You know, but the main thing that you need to understand is that the failure of a plan is not proof of its non-existence. Every single NFL team goes into an NFL game with a game plan. 50% of them fail. Does that mean that the team didn't have a game plan? Does that mean that the team didn't have this massive book with hundreds of plays and all these formations and all these special codes that they've come up with just for that game because they lost? Of course not. You can actually read failed plans. And sometimes a plan doesn't even get used. Does anyone know what War Plan Orange is? How many of you can tell me what War Plan Orange is? Or War Plan Red? That one really didn't get used. War Plan Red is the U.S. Navy's 1930s era to 1940 plan for a naval war with Britain. War Plan Orange was their naval plan for a war with Japan, which wasn't followed at all. So, so the point is that there was a plan. You don't move 65,000 troops without a plan. Yeah. Is Vox trans? No, I'm just pretty. So don't be demoralized. Be disappointed. You know, but still maintain hope. And if we can't, and if we lose hope eventually in the military over the next 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever, then we'll have to find something else to have hope in. doesn't matter. You know, if Godzilla comes to stomp you and all you've got is a butter knife, then you stab him in the foot. And I'll stab him in the foot. And the next 10 people will stab him in the foot as he stomps all over them. And eventually we'll take him down. We may not be there to see it, but we will have been a part of it. You know? And so, you know, so we'll just be patient and we will keep working. Here's the thing, and this is probably one of the things that irritated me most when people said, well, if it hadn't been for Q, then people would have done something. Like what? What are you going to do now? I didn't see any of those people who were mocking Q going to Washington, D.C. to stop the inauguration. You know? So what we have to do is to keep doing what we're doing. Keep building the good, the beautiful, and the true. Now there are some things where the ground might change, where we need to be aware. I am, you know, well aware of how people are getting kicked off of Twitter, are getting kicked off of does this against 49,000 troops, LOL. But hey, you said that Q prevented you from doing something. What did Q prevent you from doing? I've yet to hear a single suggestion from any critic of Q who has said a single thing that they were going to do, but Q prevented them from doing. Exactly. But it's very clear that the main reason that people were down on Q is because they are happy in their hopelessness. They're more comfortable wrapped in despair than in daring to hope. Because when you hope, sometimes you're disappointed. But if you don't act, you'll never accomplish anything. You know, and so I'm surprised. I'm surprised Fox is still selling the copium stock. Not gonna ban him. He's a loser. You know, if you don't hope, I don't want you here. If you're incapable of anything but wallowing in your own despair, go away. I have no use for you. We have lots of projects that we're working on. Some of the projects we are focusing on a little bit more urgently. You know, we've already seen big tech get encouraged by this, right? And so, no, ban Joe Silver. Q did not create huge despair. Q created hope. People like you create despair. People like you are the ones who are trying to sow your own hopelessness and make yourself feel better by trying to blackpill them. You know, it's fine to be disappointed. I'm disappointed. It's fine to be irritated with the next person who says, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. Believe me, I hate the 2 more weeks thing more than you do. You know why? Because 2 more weeks is what you always hear from programmers when you're developing games and developing technology. 2 weeks is the standard thing that they say when they don't really know how long it's going to take. So I shudder whenever I hear 2 weeks. I was really happy because one of the projects that we're particularly focused on now is our own payment processor. Why are we focused on it? Because if the big tech companies are so fired up and excited over the belief in the Biden administration that they are kicking people, mainstream conservatives like Michelle Malkin off of Twitter, it's only a matter of time before they begin going after the payment processors. The ADL is already campaigning to get Gab kicked off, whatever it's still on. Eventually, it's going to circulate down to other, applications and other projects and so forth. So we're actually expecting to have our first beta test of it in 10 days. So, so that all of you who subscribe to Unauthorized, who are involved in our other projects, are not going to be dependent upon credit cards and PayPal and Stripe and all of those things. The other thing that it might help you to keep in mind is that I'm not some sort of clueless optimist. There's a question here saying, if Trump had crossed the Rubicon, would it have changed your prediction that the U.S. will balkanize in the 2030s? No, not in the slightest. I've told you repeatedly, I've been predicting this since 2004. Now, people are beginning to actually think that I'm not entirely crazy to think that. But I said it back then, I said it now, and I said it doesn't matter that whether Trump is president or not, because the trends that are leading to balkanization are not political. They're demographic, they're cultural, and it doesn't really matter which that is. Dave B says, until the ISP launches UATV off a cliff, how do you know we don't own the USP or don't own the ISP? We've been on our own metal for a long time now. If we're paying attention to things like legal jurisdictions and payment processing, don't you think we've covered little things like that? And if you look at, we've been planning for this kind of stuff and paying attention to this kind of stuff for a long time. Remember, I've been getting kicked out of things. I've been having people try to kick me out of things since 2005. I was getting deplatformed long before deplatforming was cool. It's very difficult to make a payment processor. There's a ton of different legal aspects and all kinds of different things that go into it, and it's much worse in the United States. But keep in mind, we're not afraid. People are saying, "Well, what are you doing? What? No one's doing anything." Really? We've took on Amazon, we took on Google, we took on Indiegogo, we took on Patreon. We've beaten all of them. Okay, I wasn't actually involved with the Patreon one myself, but people around me were, and so the larger community was. So we're all well aware of all of these issues and all these problems and so forth. What about Agenda 21? I don't think Agenda 21 is really that much of an issue right now because the big battle right now is between China and for lack of a better term, we'll say the the Jewish diaspora, which apparently makes up virtually the entirety of Joe Biden's cabinet. And so how that shakes out is probably going to be the most important thing, other than the military reinstalling democracy or reinstalling the republic in the United States. My Shield has discussed that the White House is currently lit up like a crime scene. Can't link it here, but there's a live video feed. Very weird. Well, I would assume that it's the inauguration parties. I mean, they must be having some sort of inauguration party. Don't tell me the plan will take another 10 years till 2030. No, 2030 to 2035 is when I expect the U.S. political structure to collapse entirely. If you want some general theories how it could happen, if Joe Biden is president, and if his supporters get what they want, then you can pretty much kiss Taiwan goodbye. You can pretty much assume that there will be a U.S. Sicilian expedition in Iran, and we'll save that for a future Darkstream. Anyhow, why don't you go ahead and let's go ahead and do the super chats. Lucas Pena says, Vox is so right about the giant. If anyone remembers, that's how Dragonlance ended. F's in the chat for my halfling Tasselhoff. Let's see here. Hobby says, now we will see who will lead us in Thermopylae, who will stand, just as the Mycenae, Thespians, and Thebans did before us. As a young man, I can hardly wait. That's the right spirit. Whether we fight in the shade of the enemy's arrows, or we fight in under the cover of our own 120 millimeter artillery, we fight. I don't care if you have a machine gun, if you have a nuke, if you have a bioweapon, or if you have a butter knife. The point is, you stand. You don't give in to despair. Let's see. Arbad says, the pedos run everything and elections. They certainly ran this one. Regardless, thanks, Vox. But please enable the DVR mode for live streams so I can rewind. Thanks. I will take a look at doing that. It would probably help since YouTube keeps changing its interface around. It'd probably help if you would take a screenshot of whatever that is, indicate it and email it to me. Black Tiger Paw says, Biden plans to go after nativists now and knock down the wall. Can't imagine how that'll turn out. Well, I'm sure some people do, but keep in mind that's not going to be their priority. I mean, that their priority is going to be war with Iran. And their other priority is going to be doing whatever China tells them to do on the trade side. And so, yes, the media is all excited about going after the Christian nationalists and deplatforming this and et cetera, but they're about to find out that they're like the dog that caught the car. They have no idea what they're in for, regardless of which scenario plays out. So, Luke Hood said, just subscribe to UATV. Thanks. Yeah, I can't recommend enough. We've got, what, 2,000 people here. Everybody who can reasonably afford $5 a month should be subscribed to Unauthorized. You'll also get an invite to Social Galactic. And eventually, this will be a way to get into that whole alternative payment system. But it's more important now than ever, not for us, but for you and for the creators. We've already got the structure. We're already good. We've got some really great new content that's already contacted us and asking us if they can come on the platform, because they know that they're not going to be permitted. And these are not radical extremist whatever. These are much more mainstream people than you would normally tend to think, because they know that they are currently on the target list. Joe C says, thanks for all the great... Boy, this jumps in. Thanks for all the great analysis and fighting the fight. No question, glad to support people who want to fight. Well, I appreciate that. And I would encourage you to be discerning about the people that you choose to support. Don't support the gatekeepers. Don't support the Shapiros and the cucks. I mean, one thing that President Trump did very, very well is he showed you who's real and who's not, who's legitimate and who's not, who's going to cuck and who's not. Shotgun Bear said, we're already balkanized. We now have people who can speak up and those who can't. Further disintegration is just a matter of recursion. Oh, I absolutely agree. But it's going to get a lot more balkanized. Joey Boomers has more confidence in Taiwan than I would at the moment. The point is that Taiwan does not have the ability to withstand the Chinese military without the U.S. And it's pretty obvious that the Biden administration would stand down rather than support Taiwan. Ani says, can President Trump be sued or worse for not upholding his oath to the Constitution? No. No, it's a failure of character. It's not a legal failure. So if Q recruited Trump, then Q isn't dependent on him per se? Correct. There is an interpretation that that says that the plan was never based on Trump. I'll put it up on my blog later. And you can't just say, oh, it's just cope, because this is something that was put together and put out, ahead of time. It's an alternative. I understand that because we're all disappointed, we're all less inclined to say, yes, that's likely to happen. But remember, our opinions are irrelevant. Our opinions don't matter at all. As a second-generation immigrant, should I plan on migrating back to my ancestral country in 10 to 20 years instead of fully investing in America? I think that if the election fraud is not overturned, you're probably going to want to do it a lot sooner than 10 to 20 years, simply because I don't think that things are going to go very well for the United States, given what we are seeing with regards to the intentions of the Biden administration. You're going to be triggered for 10 days until January 31st when this all ends. That's, of course, a reference to the 10 days of darkness. I hope that's what 10 days of darkness means. I always thought that there was I always thought that that was a more reasonable interpretation of it than the idea of power outages. I don't believe it per se, but this is one scenario. I mean, again, I'm a game designer. I consider all the scenarios. I'm aware of the various scenarios. A scenario where Biden is allowed to appear to take office for 10 days is very far from unthinkable. It's just that my main problem with it, then and now, is that it requires President Trump to be derelict in his duty to defend the Constitution and defend the nation, and to leave it in at least superficially in the nominal hands of someone who is a known criminal. So does that mean that that's not happening? Of course not. My opinion is irrelevant. What will happen regardless of what we want. Did you find it in any way revealing that Biden choked up at the thought of his own demise? Well, I did, but I clearly that's not an issue, because I thought that was possibly his side deciding to make sure that that Harris had her opportunity, but we'll see. Can you get on unauthorized without a credit card? Not yet, but we're working on it. My email is, you can just send it to voxday@gmail.com. And Magister Ludai is correct. With enough UATV subscribers, you'll get TV shows. We're a long way from that, but that is true. Why do they want to go to war with Iran? Because Israel wants America to go with Iran, and most of Biden's cabinet is loyal to Israel. As is, we've been reliably informed by Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. I mean, they've been trying to get the U.S. to go to war with Iran or Syria for the past 4 years. The only reason that the U.S. didn't go to war with them is because Trump wasn't having it. And don't get me wrong, I'm disappointed that Trump did not take steps to utilize the military and prevent what we saw happen today. That being said, President Trump is still the greatest president that the United States has had since Andrew Jackson. He wasn't a failure as a president. He was a great president. The problem is that the challenges that he faced, from the traitors in his party to dealing with the deep state and all that stuff, was apparently simply too great for one man to address on his own. And he was more or less on his own. Did he make mistakes? Obviously, who doesn't? But please don't understand or hear my disappointment with his failure to cross the Rubicon with a condemnation of him or his presidency. I'll repeat it. President Donald Trump was the greatest American president since Andrew Jackson. Coachy said, I'm sorry if I asked too many times learning how to do super chats, but what do you think of Sidney Powell? I appreciate what she is trying to do. Having seen what sort of nonsense the courts and judges are capable of, I'm not surprised that she was unsuccessful. I do wish that they had, I do wish that she and Lynn Woods had better teams. I mean, honestly, I think the Legal Legion could have put together much better reports and cases and arguments. I don't actually think it would make a single bit of difference, because it doesn't matter how good your reports and rhetoric and case law is when you're dealing with corruption. Is there a family option? Not officially, but just share it. No one's gonna. We're not gonna object if you let your wife use your account or your kid use your account. Um, Thoughts on Michael Malice and his book New Right? Um, Michael's actually a fellow Bucknellian. We graduated from the same university. Uh, he's a smart guy. I don't know him very well, and I'm not familiar with his book, so um, that's as far as I can go, I'm afraid. Stuart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers likened Trump to Neville Chamberlain. What do you think of that opinion? I don't think that's quite right. Chamberlain was fooled. He was a well-intentioned man who was fooled. Trump knew what he had to do. He just didn't do it. Chamberlain, on the other hand, didn't. So I don't think that that's a correct comparison. Non-American here. Why was President AJ so great? Was it the bank war? Yes, exactly. Um, as an American Indian myself, I'm not supposed to approve of Andrew Jackson, but I think that his behavior with regards to the Bank of the United States trumps his ill treatment of some of my distant ancestors. I'm not Cherokee, by the way, just to be clear. I'm using that in the extended sense. Um, El Dente, you have to repeat your question because I don't see your super chat here. I'm looking. Oh, here it is. Never mind, I found it. Um, oh, I see we jumped around. Pledge of Defiance says the Antichrist will save us from the evil left after their tyranny drives up even most Democrat voters into his waiting arms. That is the setup. I'm dubious of that. I don't think that the Antichrist has much to do with the United States. Um, you're welcome for the quick uploads onto UATV. Always pleased to see an original unauthorized. Q was Tom Hanks. Okay, that's pretty funny. Thought you'd find this interesting. According to Disclosed TV, Twitter has locked the account of the Chinese embassy to the US for a Uyghur tweet. Okay, I'm not sure I follow. The Chinese embassy said something about the Uyghurs, so Twitter locked. Okay, I wouldn't have expected that. Joe Gagan says, some dough from another Joe. Love to your family. Thanks very much, Joe. Stay away from TV Turner Classic Movies today. Al Dente says, do you think Italy would support the repatriation of Italian diaspora given low birth rates and compared to further African migration? Yes, almost certainly. And I actually know a couple Italians who have returned to Italy, and they've been very happy that they did until they went into lockdown. Jesus Metalhead said the apostles saw the Messiah himself crucified and put to death, a sure sign of defeat for anyone, but we all know what happened afterwards. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why Christians should always have hope. You know, I mean, the United States is not Jesus Christ, but, you know, Trump is not the only answer. Trump was never going to do it by himself. So let's hope that there's some wisdom and courage in the U.S. military. Fernando Kovic said, chip manufacturers are starting to move some production from Taiwan to Texas. They see the writing on the wall. Yeah, absolutely, they should. It's pretty obvious. On the other hand, a Biden administration would probably open up trade to China again, so some of the economic incentive would be reduced. Where did I get this chair? This is my grandfather's chair. I inherited it. If I had to choose any state in America to move before balkanization, probably either North Dakota or Idaho. Let's see. Glad to hear that you have a payment processor in the work. Any other bottlenecks that big tech exploits to censor that others could possibly work on? Well, I mean, there's always stuff. There's lots of stuff. I mean, we're not gonna talk about our plans in public. not till we're ready. Logo Spare sends $1. Thank you. As does DMW. Thank you. Logo Spare says, I signed up to UATV, still have not received a Social Galactic invite. Yeah, they're trying to get us a better system going for that. So I believe if you go to Social Galactic, if you go to social.infogalactic.com, I think that's what it is. Maybe Slapweasel can figure out what it is. They've actually got an email there that you can send email to and explain to them. But here's the thing: if you're contacting Social Galactic and asking for an invite, make sure you tell them what your subscription is. You know, they're probably not going to get back to you if you just say, I didn't get an invite, because here's the thing: you almost certainly did. You know, unfortunately, some people have ISP filters that they don't know about, but I would say that 99% of the people who say they didn't get an invite were sent an invite. So at the very least, if you're contacting them, you know, tell them what your subscription level is so they can, you know, send you the correct one. It's really irksome when you are looking something up, yet when you have to look something up and then they see that you've already been sent one. So Charlemagne says, is your analysis influenced by Pareto's theory of the circulation of the elite or any other parts of his work? No, it's not. I'm familiar with it, but I'm not. It doesn't affect my thinking. Are UATV gift cards still a thing? I don't think we have the gift cards turned on right now. Maybe we should. I think we just did it for Christmas. Pablo Zarate says, Cowabunga and bring it on is all I can say for the future. Butter knives at the ready. I like to hear that. With an EU passport, which countries do you recommend living in? Well, Italy, for one. But, you know, there's also some of the smaller countries. I mean, if you're the right demographic and stuff, you know, Slovenia is nice. Austria is nice. And, okay, I think we're just about done. Okay, thought of a question. Without the military intervention, is it possible to restore fair elections in the U.S.? No. That's why this is so important, because there's absolutely no point whatsoever in engaging in politics if this situation is not turned around. I would say proton mail rather than tutanota. Laughing Man says, I'm more optimistic than ever. People will create their own solutions, platforms, and new ways to fight. Yeah, they will. It's funny to see how they're complaining that Parler's working with Russians now. Well, yeah, you ban them. So why they're not going to work with you? Bystander effect on the right is going away. Exactly, and that's not a bad thing. Why does Israel want to go to war with Iran? Because Iran is their one competitor for regional superpower. Did you ever play Utopia on Intellivision? Yes, I did. I liked it, but I like Sea Battle better. And Night Chaser. If you've been having trouble finding any Big Bear on unauthorized, you are not looking very hard. When you log into unauthorized, that's what you see. There's 4 channels. Owen Live Streams is the one on the upper left. Then there's also Unbearables, Owen Benjamin Shows, and Big Bear bonus streams, all of which are the first 3 on the 3rd row. Furthermore, if you actually click on the catalog, then you'll see here Owen's 3 most recent streams, my 3 most recent streams, etc. And then if you just click on his channel, then you're going to see a whole bunch of his videos. So I'm guessing you're not on the right site, or you're just trolling. Is nationalism dead in America or Europe? No, it's not. But it's weaker in America because America is not really a true nation. The American nation is heritage America, which is not the same thing as the U.S. citizenry. Alex Redmond says, have you seen the new Daily Wire produced movie? Of course not. The main female character stops a school shooting and in the last scene kisses her black boyfriend. Gee, the Daily Wire has decided that as an alternative to movies made by gay Jews, America needs movies made by conservative, what's the best description? I mean, the Daily Wire, all this is a gatekeeping thing. Don't pay any attention to the Daily Wire, to the Shapiros. They're not on your side. They're not American. They're actively anti the United States. They're actively anti President Trump. They're actively anti-Western civilization. Ben Shapiro's most recent book is a direct attack on Western civilization and is attempting to do to Western civilization what was already done to America and to the concept of, and to Christmas. It's just pure evil, and it's not even a surprise that they would have that sort of Shapiro-esque, I don't care about the browning of America thing. Of course he doesn't. My patient has CNN on all day. I felt I walked in on somebody's parents having sex. They were salivating so bad. That's kind of a colorful analogy. Vox Day is the Antichrist. LOL, just kidding, Zup. No, I'm not the or an Antichrist. How difficult do you think it will be for an illegitimate president to govern angry patriots? Well, I guess there's a decent chance we're going to find out. I don't think that that's the biggest issue. We're going to talk about this in a future Darkstream, but there's a lot of challenges that the theoretical Biden administration is facing, and I think we're very much talking about the dog catching the car. MacroLens got his Castalia library subscription straightened out. Excellent. Tell the team I say thanks. I will do so. If you had to choose between a British passport or Republic of Ireland passport, which would you choose and why? I would probably choose British, just because I'm not a big fan of the EU. I heard it's more economical to move manufacturing to Mexico versus China. Do you think this may be contributing to current and future conflict? Possibly, but I don't think anyone wants to move stuff to Mexico right now with the cartel government. All right. Well, we are out of time, so if I missed a super chat, please feel free to email me. Yes, I'll consider doing another How to Be Human video. In the meantime, be disappointed, but don't despair. The ride never ends. On Vox Day, this is the Darkstream.